Welcome to the Growth Shift. I'm David Zilstra. Here's what I've learned after years in business. Every leader who's built something meaningful has a story, but the moment they had to shift, when failure forced innovation, when change became opportunity, when they chose growth over comfort. On this show, we dive into those pivotal moments, the setbacks that became breakthroughs, the strategic shifts that accelerated growth, and the frameworks that turned obstacles into opportunities. Because here's the truth. In a world where change is the only constant, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who've learned to shift strategically through it. So whether you're facing your own pivot point or just want to learn from someone who's been there, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. This episode is brought to you by Valentix. At Valentix, we work with coaches and consultants who are struggling with generating consistent, high quality leads, automating their client onboarding processes, and scaling their operations without simply adding more hours or headcount. Most of the time, our clients come to us frustrated because they're bogged down in manual tasks and feel like they're missing out on the power of modern technology. But with the right strategy and AI-powered solutions, they're able to streamline their workflows, attract better opportunities, and achieve sustainable growth. If that sounds like you or someone you know, learn more at volentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on the Growth Shift, we are thrilled to welcome Amy Rizak, the dynamic founder of Sales and Presence. Amy's journey is a powerful narrative of transforming personal challenges into professional purpose. Having pivoted from a successful 17-year career in corporate sales to empowering middle to large companies with cutting-edge sales and communication training. Her unique approach moves beyond traditional 19 sales tactics, focusing instead on the hows of communication, building relationships, and fostering mutual success. Amy is not only a seasoned expert, but also a visionary leader, constantly evolving her methodology, expanding her team, and preparing to launch her second book. Her insights into sales, presence, and strategic adaptation are invaluable for anyone looking to elevate their business development. Amy, welcome to the Growth Shift.
Thank you for having me.
Now, it seems like you have a normal approach to entrepreneurship and what I mean of, high success in the corporate environment and then making that transition to doing something on your own. But Amy, why? Tell us a little bit more about your corporate journey and ultimately what led you to leaving the corporate world to set out on your own.
Yeah, it was years in the making, I think. I will say that I do love corporate. I was bored. I didn't really have anywhere to go. I was successful in my career. I had moved a few different companies in the same industry and really was not growing anymore. I loved my clients. I, again, loved corporate. I liked the energy around what sales teams bring, good and bad and all the things. It's like a family dynamic when you get in there. But I really was missing my next growth level and staying curious and wanting to have more. So I stepped out of corporate and I took a few months and really jotted down, literally, everything I loved about my job and then everything that I was missing. Not everything I didn't like. I think there's a big difference there. We are going to not like things and no matter what we do. So it was really what was I missing? What that thing that would have catapulted me to stay? And I created it because I wasn't finding it anywhere. And so I kind of, on a whim, thought, well, if I'm missing it, maybe other people are missing it too. And that's where it was born.
So, I mean, you sounded like you were bored in the corporate world, right? You enjoyed it for certain reasons. Certain things were missing, but you moved between companies looking for something that perhaps you didn't. Did you know exactly what it is that you were looking for, or was it a journey of starting to discover what was missing ultimately?
Yeah, I don't think I knew what I was missing. Corporate has a way of what's next would be climb the ladder per se. So I was thinking maybe that's it, or maybe it's different product lines that I could learn, or it was. I wasn't totally grasping what that was, what I was missing. I knew though that it was something. I was seeing the same clients every single month. I was doing the same turn and burn every single month. And although that's great, and I, had an income that was sustainable. It was a choice of, do I do this for the next X amount of years and then retire? Or do I fall back in love with my day to day? And there's good and bad to that, right? So I think that those who I was in a spot where I didn't have kiddos and I didn't have all the things and I was able to move through that in a different way. If it was different, maybe I would have found that externally instead of in my day-to-day job. But I also am a person that has to have something that I really love and am passionate about within my working environment. So it was a no-brainer for me to switch it up. Now, I will say entrepreneurship on itself, I do not feel like I excel at that. That is not where I land in my brain of where I excel. However, it is something that came to me and I started just diving into it a little bit more to see where we were going to go and see if it would fly, and it has.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned something there that makes me a little bit curious. You said that you explored whether or not you should pursue falling back in love with your day to day. I'm curious, was there anything through that journey that showed you or helped you realize that trying to fall back in love with maybe something that you were moving away from wasn't the right path, and taking that jump and that leap into entrepreneurship, regardless of all of the challenges and uncertainties, was really what you were meant to be doing?
Yes, yes, and no. I would say I haven't fallen too far away from it. We only work with corporate companies and we only work with the mass majority of sales teams. So I'm not too far away from it, actually. So when I was thinking around what my next move would be and how to fall in love with that again, one of the glaring things for me was that I did love corporate and I did love that sales team effect. I did love the struggle of the communication between clients and salespeople and companies and all the dynamics that go into that communication line to have that mutual success. That is what I loved. I loved all of that. It's like this big, huge family. So then when I took that and started creating the things I was missing, I was like, can I put what I was missing back into corporate? And so I didn't necessarily walk away from it 100%. I took what I really would have wanted and craved in that setting and did it on my own, and now I'm going back into those settings to be a part of that. So although I am not quote unquote part of that family dynamic anymore with one company or one industry, the feeling is still there when I get to walk into the room, right? I get that energy. I understand the teams. I've lived through that. The struggles and the chaos that come with it are very real. And so getting to talk to companies and individuals around that in real time, it brings me right back to it.
So now at Sales and Presence, your business moving forwards, we chatted the other week and you told me that you do things a little bit differently, right? You focus on communication and on building relationships, right? Getting rid of those 1990s sales tactics that perhaps a lot of people are still stuck in. Was there anything during your journey in corporate that, really just showed you that things need to be done differently, and that focus on relationships was really that differentiator?
Yeah, I think so. Number one, in the sales community, everyone knows that we need to build relationships. That is a large statement. You can take that a number of ways. That can be, I have to go to dinner X amount of times with a client. I have to take them to happy hour. I have to go to golf. That is not building a relationship that is sustainable because you don't have the credibility side. So we're kind of missing that. I would say for me, what really resonated in the beginning of my career was that I really kind of fell into it, if you will. The first time that I went out to see clients, I did not have anyone with me. I did not have a manager. I didn't have anyone supporting me, helping me, telling me what I was doing wrong. So I was completely winging it with the best of them, which I know 100% of salespeople do from time to time, including myself. And so it really, I was like, well, game on. What do I know that I can do now? I knew a baseline of the products, but I didn't know them in depth yet. And so it really was me leaning on my psychology degree, my curiosity around humans and how we interact together. And I was leaning on that only because I wasn't confident in what we were talking about or what I was trying to sell in the moment, because I just didn't have the bandwidth of knowledge as of yet. And so that's really where it started, was, okay, how do I do this and walk into a room with confidence and really lean on them, honestly, to give me what I need so that I can talk to them more. And that's where it started. Now, did I recognize that in the beginning? Kind of. Not fully. But then when I started doing it more and more, I was like, oh yeah, this is how we do this. So I took all of that on it early on and kind of adapted it. And now I will say those 90s type programs or sales training, those had its place. I think it's, we're definitely in a different time and era now. We have technology. We don't hold all the cards of information. The client does, whether it's correct or not. We meet the client in a different space in their buying journey. There are lots of different things that go on now from that time that we need to adjust to, and it's all around that communication space. We need the baseline of sales training. But once you have that, then it's that 1% lift of what do I do now? How do I communicate within all of those? And that's where we live within our company.
So earlier on in your sales career, initially you realized that, hey, happy hours and golf aren't the way to build sustainable relationships, and you found a way of building deeper personal connections, and that's what it is you're bringing to sales and presence.
Yeah.
Now, we understand that you work with corporate clients and you help them develop their sales teams so that they can build better relationships. But what does that actually look like? How is it that you come into a company and you help them make this happen?
Yeah, so one of the things that's really exciting about us is that we are a boutique firm, which means when you talk to us, you don't get anything canned. So we really value that. I really value that due to I know myself when I'm talking to people that I need to bring on, I don't want things that are canned. And the sales cycle and industries are all vastly different. So really meeting the company and the teams where they are is number one. Two, then we work to develop what does that look like? Is that a speaking engagement at your conference? Is that a training or a workshop there as well? Is that a series? So we maneuver through the logistics of that. But then once we get that down, what we're really going to be focusing on is the how. So we are going to focus on how with every communication space. So let's take, for example, a sales cycle may start at prospecting, and then you get a meeting, and then you have to follow up, right? So those are three very distinct things that we do in sales all the time. And the hardest part about that is how to go about the communication within it. So that's where we live. We have all these nuances of things that sell. There are certain words that grab people and will sell more. There are words that diminish your worth and your credibility. How do you phrase things? How often are you following up? On a psychological basis, we have things like, so we want to be seen more often than not. So all of those things are what we are teaching that is very different than that old school way of hammering the phones. It's really getting in there and connecting in a meaningful psychological way.
Do you have perhaps a story for a client that you've worked with to perhaps show us this in action and really how it played out, taking them from point A of perhaps weaker or outdated communication and relationship building methods to, moving forwards with, making that transformation?
Oh, I have so many. So many. It's so great. I love seeing them in real time. I just had one yesterday. I was doing a training, and during the training, we were talking around word impact and how we're phrasing things in an email versus, and call, whatever, but this specific one was email, and how to impact that better. And we're looking at different examples. And after the training, a gentleman came up to me and said, so as you were talking, I recognized I needed to follow up again with someone because they were never getting back to me. He's like, so I reframed it the way we had just done in the workshop. He's like, and they got back to me in real time, like within the hour. It's amazing when we see those real life things come to fruition. There was another one about a year ago, a very high dollar potential client that they had been working with to get in the door and have communication for the last 2 years. So a very long sales cycle on this. And they kind of fell off the radar. So contacted me to say, what do? I don't know how to pick this ball back up, which is very common in sales, right? So we talked through that and talked around, okay, what was done in the past? How do we serve them now and bring them forward with everything that you had talked about, remind them of those things, and then really set forth kind of the expectation going forward. So he did that, reached out to them, did everything that we talked about, and they will be closing the end of October. with this client. So it's really amazing when we sit back from our really fast-paced sales life to say, how am I actually communicating? Am I connecting within a certain time frame, or am I actually communicating with these people, and how? Because I think that the older we get, especially, we get in a communication pattern that's very normal to us, and we don't necessarily know how to get out of that to communicate more effectively, more genuine within that, more authentic to ourselves. We don't need to sound like a canned salesperson anymore. So all of those things lend to that, which is very exciting.
Now, I think a lot of the audience here are sitting and hearing this and thinking that, oh, wow, I think I'm in some patterns and, perhaps I'm falling into that position as well. Amy, this is pretty high level and it's very valuable, but I'm going to have to put you on the spot and ask you for some nuggets here. I mean, you mentioned words that sell, words that perhaps increase the gap between you and a prospect, or a seller and a prospect. Can you give us perhaps some examples of, what those words are that might sell, or how to actually change your approach and get out of those patterns to maybe pick up an old lead or continue a conversation?
Yeah, so I'll give you one that is universal to every single salesperson, is the line, I'm just following up. I'm just following up to see if you've had a chance to look this over. I know you're busy, but if you get some time, please reach back out. Would love to chat with you. Mm-hmm. There's so many diminisher words in there, it does not make you credible. And you sound, here's the biggest take on this, you sound like everyone else. So in a sea of flux of we get inundated with things these days, we have to stand out. That doesn't mean be inauthentic. It means be different within being you, right? So it may sound like we're going to take the word just out. That's a diminisher word. Don't use that. That is mine, by the way. So anyone that's saying, oh, I don't know, that's really hard to do, I will tell you it is hard to do. I still write it in my emails and then I take it out after I write it. So this is definitely not one of those quick fixes. You're going to be working on your communication your entire life. But we could say things like, I am following up on the acquisition that I had sent you last Friday. Let me know if you have any questions on that. If I don't hear from you, I will be following up again by Thursday. So way more impact there. We didn't use the word just. We gave time frame around it, which we're always going to do. And then the word, interestingly enough, the first one that I used the word but in there. I know you're busy, but if you have some time, that is also a diminisher word, which is a fascinating one for me. We can fix that to put and in there instead, right? So I know that your time is valuable, and I had sent you this last Friday, right? We're moving on to that. So it's an and. I had a client 6 months ago or so say to me, well, we're small, but we're mighty. And I was like, no, you're small and you're mighty. That one word difference is major. And we don't recognize, and we're not taught, by the way, these type of things. So we can change an entire impact by one word, which is pretty phenomenal. The other thing I'll tell you, which we haven't jumped into, is that your nonverbal also speaks very loud. So when we are walking into a room, if we don't have anything on our plate where we're just speaking or emailing, where we're visible to people, that is going to communicate and connect beyond the words, and it's going to connect first. So we want to make sure that that's on point too. 3 things you can do there: your posture, your hands, and your eyes. So eye contact, your posture actually invites people in. I, of course, have this way over here, but if you have your phone in your hand, you are going to look down at it, especially when you get a little bit insecure when you're walking into a meeting or an event or a conference or a networking event. And then your posture goes down into what we call low power posture. You're closed off. People are not inevitably going to come talk to you. So that thing needs to be put completely away. And that is probably one of the hardest things to do. I don't know about you, but I would challenge the listeners to think about the last time they were away from their phone for more than 5 minutes. So that's one of those things that we can also do to create communication. Obviously, eye contact. Hands are an interesting one. Hands are our trust factors. They're actually what we notice first. Psychologically, we as humans are still humans first, so we check for safety all the time. So we're checking to make sure if they're maybe a friend or if they're a foe. So we're looking at that subconsciously. We want to have them open and welcoming. We do this a lot with handshakes, waves, open arms when we see somebody. If you're a hugger, that's great too. So those are some of those really in-time things that you can put into practice.
No, Seems like these are some pretty small, significant, and powerful changes that people can make immediately to position themselves perhaps as more of a peer and a collaborator rather than, as someone who's just trying to gain a little bit of business, let's say. Now, this is
Yeah.
also a little further in the sales process, right? You've made that connection. You've had those first calls and you're trying to pick them up again or move them forwards. Amy, for yourself as as a sales professional and consultant, when it comes to the beginning of the pipeline and actually generating those first few conversations, what do you find to be the most powerful and effective?
Yeah, so I will go back to it's very much the same. And to your point, it is small nuances that we're changing here. The baseline of what we do every single day is solid. I am not coming in to say we need to change the entire way of doing business or your entire sales process. That's solid. We're not doing that. What we're doing is we're coming in with a 1% lift. So we are changing the game with just a 1% lift. We're switching things up enough to where the impact is greater on the other side, and then we are more confident and credible on our side. When we're outreaching, let's say it's a cold outreach or we have never spoke to somebody before, then that starts in with the curiosity side. So many times we are taught to pitch.
So, Amy, you're clearly a very established professional when it comes to sales, right? Building and fostering relationships and being able to move prospects and relationships forwards within a business. We were just talking, of course, about the sales process further down the pipeline. But when we're looking at those initial stages or earlier in a pipeline, what are some of the approaches and methods that you yourself use to first build those initial connections?
Yeah, so if we're thinking of like cold outreach per se, or reaching out to somebody that's a prospect that we've never spoken to before, that is difficult. We get in our feelings really fast. We get in anxiety, we don't want to bother them, we don't know what to say, we don't know how to really reach out, all of those things. So what we learn quickly in corporate is to pitch. So when we reach out, we say, hi David, this is Amy, would love to talk to you, here's what we do, can I get some time on your calendar? And then what happens is that we don't connect with them well because they don't care. We haven't given them any value or anything that they care about. So we need to reframe that and think about them instead of what we're trying to do or accomplish. So that would sound more into a curiosity side to say, David, I noticed on your website recently you have X. We also carry XYZ and support clients like yourself within this. Would it be of an option to contact you next week to chat a little bit more about it? So we're trying to come in it as a different angle of seeing you, seeing what is about you, the things that we can. The other thing that we always pitch in sales is find the value. Talk about the value to the client. Well, that word is highly overrated. It's used way too much in corporate and in sales. Because the bottom line is value is whatever matters to the client. So although your product may be amazing, your company may be one of the best, your pricing's on point, all of those things, if those three things don't matter to your client, it's not a value. So we have to start asking more questions, being more curious, and staying in the mindset of learning versus pitching. So that's where I would start with that, is the curiosity side of, hey, would love to have a conversation. How are you? Tell me about things. So I can then know where to go with my conversation.
Oh, I love that shift of mindset and approach, right? Rather than a self-centered, this is what we do, I can provide you with something, it's actually starting a conversation based on collaboration. What is important to your prospect? Where is that overlap? What can you actually provide to them that will be, yes, valuable, but important to them and align with their needs, their goals, their desires, and them as individuals as well? I love this approach and this shift, Amy. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what's in the pipeline or what's in the future for your business. What are you currently working on right now internally?
Oh my gosh, what are we not working on? So internally we're setting up for the coming year to expand a few of our services. We're going to have an online service as well now. We just got done with that a couple months ago, so that will be available for anyone who wants to do self-learning pace. They can just pop on there and do that within their own time and not with anyone else. I know sometimes that's even more valuable than having to be with a team. You can do it on your own time. Coming out with a second book, slated to come out in Q1, which is very exciting. What's really exciting to me about that is that we actually have a method built in. So within this one, we have created a method that you can use for every stage of the sales process. So we can take that and put it in those stages to support you and help you through those. Also, all around that communication and that connection side of things. And then, we're going to do a lot more speaking engagements next year, and we'll definitely keep on the training wheel. We have at least 3 more coaches that we're hiring to do that for that bandwidth. We're growing, and we are, right in there with our clients to make sure that they have the success that they need.
Fantastic. So, Amy, you're in a position right now where, you obviously do things differently, right? Just in terms of your business and your sales approach, focusing on those relationships. But I'm sure there's a few listeners here thinking and hearing this and thinking that, hey, like, I do those things myself, right? I focus on those myself, but there's just so many challenges that I'm up against right now, right? We are in an extremely competitive landscape right now. Perhaps partially enabled by tech and AI as well. But, with so much competition and so much noise in the market, what are some of the things that you're doing to combat against that, right? Because reaching out to people and, finding that commonality and the common ground and starting conversations in the right way is, of course, the right approach, but it doesn't necessarily negate the challenges that many coaches and consultants are up against, right? The market noise, the saturation. What is it that you're currently working on to stand out further and to really be able to push forwards?
Yeah, I think so. I would argue that, it all sounds easy, right? It sounds very much like, well, yeah, that's obvious. It is obvious, it's not easy. And so I think that the disconnect there is that a lot of people within my space tend to then lean on some of the tracks and the things that were working before and not leaning on the hard, right? So I think that that's where we miss cue. The other thing I would say is that we really do need to use technology to our advantage and not shy away from that. So really diving into what are those systems that are going to support you to then support your clients best. So a thing like an Excel spreadsheet is not a system. We need to go way beyond that within having an actual CRM that functions, having a lot of those back-end tools that are really put into place. We also then work with other partners to have the ability to work with our clients in a capacity that we don't. So we work with an AI company right now that does online training within an AI role. So they can do real-time role play with an AI person. This is non-verbal as well, which is amazing. And they will give feedback in real time. So we can then use that, record that, and say, okay, let's talk about your presentation. What do you think you went well? You're watching yourself on screen now. We know that everybody hates that. So let's dive into that one. What do you think you did well on that? What are those things that you thought you were doing that didn't show up? So those are those things in real time that we can plug back into our training that elevate us in a really unique way to have that entire 360 experience for our clients.
So here we're talking about, leveraging the power of technology and AI to be able to perhaps hone your skills and become a more effective communicator, but also within the business being able to leverage those to really make sure you're using the right systems as well. AI and tech are extremely powerful, and I think people can see what the advantages are. What I'd love to chat about a little bit are, what are the concerns or the potential downfalls of technology when it comes to building proper relationships? I mean, with the approach that you take, in your position as an expert communicator and relationship builder, what do you see being some of those biggest concerns of perhaps using technology or AI too much?
Yeah. So I think everything in the quantified state, right? So if we're fully using tech to do all of our work, then it's not going to work. Humans still need relationships, right? They're going to see through that. They're going to see through some of the AI, even though it's getting better. We still need that human connection. On the flip side of that, if we are only reaching out and doing snail connection, if you will, within our human to human connection, we're going to miss a lot of things because other people are combining it. I think that the scary part is the unknown, right? Always the scary part is, oh, well, it's going to take my job within sales. It's going to do this. It's going to do X. No, it is a support system for you. Just like your CRM system, just like any other technology that your company offers, just like your teams, right? So your teams is a big one within corporations to talk amongst each other. Those are tools that up-level you. So take it, learn how it can up-level you, and then don't take it at 100%. Right? So I'm thinking in my day today, I post a lot on LinkedIn, and every time I do a photo or I'm thinking of a concept to post, I throw it in chat. And then it knows me now, so it knows my voice. We've talked a lot around my voice and what it's supposed to sound like. So she knows me a little bit now. So she'll come up with this concept, right? But then I take that and then I alter it a bit to make sure it's me. So what it's doing is it's taking the work and making it faster, but it's also me at the end because I'm not just copy pasting go, right? I want to make sure that it's still me and my voice and how I sound and the things that I really want to get across. So we can definitely use it as an advantage and something that can kind of streamline and move things forward a little bit faster. But it's a tool, just like anything else. It will not replace human connect. Nothing on this earth can replace human connection. We've known this now for years and years and years. I just saw something a couple weeks ago again that the psychological effect of people not having people around them is shocking. How we tend to go downhill as humans when we don't have these partnerships, these friendships, this human connection. It is required psychologically as a human to have that. And so that will never go away. And we want that too, right? We want to do business with those people that we trust and that we like. We can all think of people that we're like, oh my gosh, yes, I love doing business with this human, right? They get it, they're easy, they ask the great questions. I feel like this is a true partnership. People want that. We're not getting rid of that. So I think the combination is really where the key is there in figuring out how to best utilize that for your own success.
Yeah. We're talking about setting up guidelines and guardrails right now and using AI and technology as a tool, not as a be all and end all, right? But using it to actually be able to enhance and multiply the skills that you have to be more effective. Not to do less work, but to do better work, we could say. I love
Yeah.
that, Amy. That is exactly what we believe at Valentix and the exact approach that we take as well. So it's so refreshing to hear that from an expert communicator such as yourself as well. Now, Amy, one more question to wrap things up. Your journey and your insights into authentic sales and communication are truly inspiring. Based on your philosophy of transforming challenges into purpose and your focus on the how of communication, what's the single most important piece of advice that you would offer to our audience of entrepreneurs who are striving to elevate their sales performance and build a truly impactful presence in their market?
Well, that's a deep question. I mean, one thing, only one thing. Yeah, I would say I think one of the biggest struggles is to get too in the weeds of your own stuff. It is difficult. It's challenging. And if you're feeling right now like you don't have clients clamoring at the door or it's a little silent and you're really struggling with what to do to get off the ground or lift higher, getting out of your own way would be my one thing. I tell myself that probably weekly. Okay, get out of your way, stay curious. So those two in combination. Don't worry about you, worry about what you're bringing them. So be in that curious frame of mind always to learn about them, to see where they're sitting, to listen and to offer the support. And the work will come when you do that. So it's not about us getting out there more. It's really about that curiosity and leaning in to the client.
Fantastic. Amy, thank you again so much for sharing your story as well as your insights with the audience. For anyone who might like to connect with you online to continue the conversation or to perhaps look at working with you, what would be the best way to find
You can easily find me on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Amy Rizak, on LinkedIn, or you can check out the website at salesandpresence.com.
you? Thanks again for joining us on the Growth Shift.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on another episode of the Growth Shift. If this conversation sparked something for you, whether it's a new perspective on failure, a strategy you want to try, or just the reminder that every setback can become a setup for something bigger, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid change. They're the ones who shift strategically through it. If you're ready to build the systems that help you grow without the chaos, head over to valentix.io. We help businesses like yours scale smarter, not harder. I'm David Zilstra, and I'll see you in the next shift.